Hello, and we come now to Psalm 95. This is the first of 5 psalms that were chosen by the Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics of the village of Tzfat, Safed, in the land of Israel during the 16th century. These Jewish mystics decided that Psalm 95 through 99 should be recited at the beginning of the Shabbat, namely on Friday evening, as a special way of welcoming the Sabbath queen. And they envisioned themselves as if they were grooms or husbands welcoming the bride on Friday night to their chamber. And in this way, they considered their union with the Shabbat as symbolic of the union between God and God's people, Israel. So this had a very kind of a mystical flavor to it, and these psalms in particular were felt to be appropriate as ways of ushering in the Sabbath queen. So let me read it for you now. Come, let us sing joyously to the Lord, raise a shout for our rock and redeemer. Let us come into his presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for him in song. For the Lord is a great God, the great King of all divine beings. In his hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are his. His is the sea, he made it, and the land which his hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel. Bend the knee before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God, and we are the people he tends, the flock in his care. Oh, if you would but heed his charge this day. Do not be stubborn, as at Meribah, as on the day of Massah in the wilderness, when your fathers put me to the test, tried me, though they had seen my deeds. 40 years I was provoked by that generation. I thought, they are a senseless people, they would not know my ways. Concerning them I swore in anger, they shall never come to my resting place. So if we wanted to, we could focus on the last 5 verses or so, or 4 verses rather, which lean towards the negative and describe the faithlessness of the first generation of Israelites who left Egypt. The reference here to Meribah, when the Israelites complained of lack of water, and they tested God in the sense that they showed a lack of faith and belief in God's beneficence and providence. They truly feared that God would leave them and abandon them to die of thirst in the desert. They did not heed or pay attention to all the miracles and acts of faith and redemption that God had shown to them up until this point. They are described as Am To'e Levav, people of lacking sense. Literally, To'e Levav means mistaken or error or errant in heart. And heart was considered biblically to be the seat of the mind. So it means that they were lost, they were confused, they were not able to think clearly about their relationship with God, and they allowed themselves to be guided by fear and anxiety rather than by hope and faith. So that's the way the psalm ends. Interesting that it ends on a negative note, but we also might look at it in the sense that that generation, the generation of those who left Egypt, they came, and then they went. They died out in the desert. Their children succeeded them. And this allowed a new start, a new beginning for the people Israel. And we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care, in the words of the psalmist in verse 7. When you think of that also in comparison to the image of God as the one who is king over all divine beings, namely king or ruler over the entire universe including the stars, the planets, and the angels in biblical way of thinking. In his hands are the depths of the earth, the peaks of the mountains are his, he is the sea, the land, and so on. In other words, God's sovereignty and power are majestic and infinite in the sense that he created everything and has mastery over all nature. Compare that to lowly humankind, who actually, in this particular context, human beings are not so lowly, but we are exalted in the sense that we are compared to a flock, and God is our shepherd. So, as great and powerful as that king is, he also, as it were, comes down to earth and takes care of people, of human beings. He's not too busy. He's not too occupied with running and ruling the universe, at least not so busy that he can't pay attention to the needs and the cares of human beings like us. And that's really a very comforting image and one to cherish. God is great and powerful in this image, but also God is loving and caring, like a shepherd who takes care of his flock. These are things to think and reflect on the Sabbath day, but really every day, but particularly on the Sabbath day when the psalmist begins by declaring, "Let us sing joyously to the Lord, let us come into his presence with praise." After a 6-day work week, a long week of toil and labor, people put everything down and prepare and get ready for the Holy Sabbath day. And we come into his presence, in the language of the psalm here, with the idea that as we desist from work and try to put away our cares and concerns of the past week, we focus on the Sabbath day, the day of rest, a time when we can enter into God's presence and have more time to worship, to study, to reflect, to meditate on the presence of God and the special relationship that each individual has with the Creator. Shabbat is a time to take more energy and create more space for these kinds of spiritual pursuits. And so, as great and grand as the universe is, as all-powerful, at least in the image of this psalm, theologically that can perhaps be questioned nowadays whether we believe that God is all-powerful in the sense of controlling everything in the universe, which would then imply that God is the cause of everything that happens, including all the bad things, as Rabbi Kushner described in his great book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Maybe we don't always buy the idea of God being all-powerful, but we certainly do love the idea and embrace the idea that God is our shepherd. God cares for us during times of trouble, during times of suffering. God gives us the strength to move forward and continue on in life. And also, God, who created the world and the universe in 6 days, stopped on the 6th day, ceased creating the universe, the world, and left for us the Sabbath day, not only when God would cease from God's labors, but when we can stop from our labors and cares and try to focus on our love of God, our commitment to a life of spiritual growth, and a life of moral righteousness. Those are some of the things that we can focus on during the Shabbat day, but as I said earlier, indeed on every day, and can give us cause to sing with joy and to chant praises to the Holy One. Thank you.